Hello, and welcome to the Be Smart About Art show. Let me press record and try that again. Hello, and welcome to the Be Smart About Art show. My name is Susan J. Mumford. I'm the founder of Be Smart About Art, and as many viewers know, a serial entrepreneur in the art market. I'm here today to talk about pricing art profitably. And it's not only actually art that we're talking about when it comes to pricing, because you might have other goods or services that you offer as well. The foundation of this is art, because we are in the art world and the primary product that people offer is going to be art. But let's think about it more broadly, because it's a good idea to have an array of services and an array of goods potentially. And this is like a little mini workshop that we're doing today, which I really enjoy very much. I'm going to encourage you to pull out whatever kind of note-taking item you like to use, because I'm going to be really going through what I trust is going to be useful material. What I'm going to cover is several different points on this. So the first thing I want to think about is the philosophy of pricing and what impacts upon price tags. And the reason for that is we want to approach the topic of pricing art in and of itself in a way that's actually going to be successful in selling. So we're not just putting a price on something to have a price. We're actually thinking about the psychology that is part of that strategy, essentially, that you employ. The second thing I want to cover in brief is going to be profit margins. Making money on selling art, on selling related items as well. I will give you my top 3 steps to pricing. This really provides the foundation of setting prices, whether you are just starting out pricing, or if that's something that you have, if basically you are a long-standing artist or gallery owner and you need to price a new body of work. And again, it could be that you also are pricing some services as well. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'll pepper some examples throughout the session today, and I'm going to go over just some FAQs that I tend to get when it comes to pricing art. So get ready, we're about to take off. For those of you who are watching live on Facebook, feel free to make comments, ask questions. I'll try to pick those up. I do have a fair bit of ground to cover. And for those of you watching the replay, feel free to share your own examples and things that you would like to share while you're watching the replay, because that's something we will continue to keep an eye on as well. Right, and I'm just trying to pick up the comments now. Brilliant. Thank you for all the love, everyone, that you're sending me. I'm just absolutely loving those reactions that I'm getting to the live session. Right, so when it comes to pricing, when I talk about what it is that you're pricing, you typically, well, rather, everything goes into 2 areas. You've got goods and you've got services. Goods could also be products. So that tends to be physical items. So in most cases in the art world, it would be works of art. But it actually could be other things as well. It could be, if you look behind me, here we are in my office. It could be books that you've got. It could be that there's a calendar, a related calendar that you're selling. Let's pretend, like this little drawing from one of my nieces. It might be that let's say that wasn't actually a drawing, that was a reproduction print. So it could be that's a reproduction of an original work of art that you'd maybe photographed and had printed. So it could be that you've got prints. So those are examples of goods. They could be digital as well. If you're somebody who is selling digital art, I am increasingly hearing about artists getting involved in kind of virtual art exhibitions. I think it's a really exciting time for digital art. I have been hearing about people buying digital art for a number of years now. I think the first person, if I remember, who I heard about investing in digital art, really because she's in the art world and she thought it was really cool, that was probably around 2014 or so, I would say. In fact, we were in the Covent Garden office at the time, so that is indeed about the time that she would have done that. So yeah, we're also seeing some digital goods and services as well. or other goods. And when it then comes to services, which is where I was going, you might have the offering of bespoke slash custom commissions. It might be that a service you offer is framing or installation or even delivery transportation services, packing and postage, that kind of thing. It could also be for services a bit of tutorial, a bit of teaching. It could be face to face, it could be online. In the current era, we're certainly talking about most things being online at the moment, and we'll see more of that continue into the future as well. And a brilliant service that I'm seeing increasingly is artists doing art trips. It doesn't apply in the current era, but it will apply again at some point in future. So, there are ways to think about things, and you could always give experiences of places where you're located online as well. So if you're somewhere gorgeous, or you're somewhere where you think actually it's perfectly gray, and I say this as somebody who is a trained photographer, that there are some lighting conditions that are really excellent actually for creating art or doing photography, etc. So you could always do remote teaching that still have a sense of an experience. And so services, you get the sense that it's about action, it's about creating something that might be more time-based, and yet the pricing is based on what you deliver, the value that you leave with a person, how you help a person change if it's in this situation of teaching, etc. So do think about it being what the result is. And that's the same thing with goods, that is services, services, and in terms of what value you're putting onto things. So the first point below that I want to cover when we're talking about the psychology of goods and services is pricing to sell. What I mean by that is that we're not talking about pricing in a theoretical sense. We are talking about pricing in the real world. I come at this from the point of view of somebody in the art market. I had a gallery for a number of years. I was an art dealer. I was then an art advisor. I have been in this industry for just about 2 decades at the time of recording. And what I want you to do is to have pricing that enables you to step up and step up and step up your prices over time. Now, in the midst of what we're going through at the moment, what do you do about pricing? Well, ideally, you don't reduce the actual price of works of art. I know a lot of people are putting art into sales, and that's completely fine. I actually received earlier today, I've got a price sheet somewhere in the office, which is you've got 2 columns for a company's services. So you've kind of got a column here and a column here, but then they've got this other column that they've added, which is a special pandemic rate. So whilst we're going through the pandemic and the recession, and this is useful information just to think about in the future as well, they are discounting their prices for that period. So it could even be that when we talk about pricing to sell, that yes, you might have your listed public price, but that actually you have got special rates that you put on for special times. And that can apply at different times as well. For those people who maybe make works of art that are ideal for, say, the festive period of the year, it might be that you have special incentives or something, like maybe you throw in, you don't even have to discount, you could always throw in something extra. So, oh, you buy that work of art, you get a free study that was part of the inspiration for the piece, which people really love. So we're thinking about pricing to sell and then associating potential advantages to purchasing based on what's happening at the time. And what we don't want to do is to have you price an amount that is going to price beyond what people will purchase. At the same time, I don't want you to underprice. And it's this careful balance that you need to strike, because there is this psychology that goes into price. I've often talked in workshops about, say, the difference between 2 different apples. One is, let's say, 80 cents, and one is $1.89. What are the difference in those 2 apples? Do you think one is cheap, one is probably tasteless, one was kind of mass produced, one is organic, it's just luscious and incredible? And the reason for that difference is that price. That's the only difference potentially. And therefore you want to think about what the price is saying as well, and does it make sense in the marketplace? I'm going to stop that point there because I will come back to it. But there's an unconscious psychology that takes place when somebody sees the price, and you want to make sense of it. I think one of the really big keys to pricing is having a reason behind it, so that when somebody asks you, why on earth did you price something like you did, that you can go, here's the reason. So you're not just plucking prices out of thin air. And there are ideas that there are formulas to pricing art. You know what? There aren't. It's all based on the marketplace. And that's actually the next point is that when you price, you're pricing in context of the art market. That might be your immediately local art market. It might be a national art market. It might be a more kind of global view that you're taking on things. But there could be slight variances in prices in different places, but you want to be careful. In an ideal world, you are pricing consistently everywhere. For example, if you place works of art into a fair, an art fair or an artist fair, that it's the same price as if you're selling it directly out of your studio. Bearing in mind, you can put a temporary sell on that baby. So it is possible to have some price adjustments when you discount your prices, but the public price, what is on the price tag, you might see in retail shops, RRP, is that equivalent. It's that there is a value to your works of art, and then you can climb, you can increase your prices from there because you haven't established what the value is. Well, how can you ever increase it in the first place? That makes it difficult. And how do you not upset people as well who maybe have discovered that you're selling it on the cheap out of your studio as a gallery or as an artist? I see many galleries with quote unquote studios these days. So, it's thinking about the other side. It's thinking about how people are going to perceive that. So it's having that right price that's reflecting the quality that you want. And it's also what you're doing is you're positioning it so that you can grow and you can expand and you can gently increase your prices over time. Bearing in mind that during eras like the one we're living through at the moment, you can by all means do temporary discounts on the public pricing, and that is completely fine. Now, when it comes to what's going to impact upon the price of art, there are a whole host of considerations. It might be to give you just a few ideas how long it takes you to create a piece. If you're someone who is creating 10 pieces a day, well, your prices are going to be different to somebody who is creating 10 pieces a year. And I have met artists with equally valid, equally successful careers in those two different situations. And therefore that how long it takes to produce is going to have some impact. It could be that the size of the piece is going to impact it. Now, this might be from a more psychological point of view, and there also might be an educational perspective that's required. And here's what I mean by that. There's often an idea that the larger a work of art, the more expensive it is, and people like, quote unquote, big bang for their buck. I remember years ago hearing about various galleries who were exhibiting in Singapore, and their observation was, yep, big, bright, colorful cells, have that at a nice price. Hey presto, people love it because they see this big piece, they think it's a reasonable value, and they go, right, I'd love to purchase that. It's not to say that actually the cost of production is going to be that much more for a big piece or a small piece, but that's the perception. That's when we talk about the psychology. So you are pricing according to being in a marketplace, but you're doing it in a fair and reasonable way as ever, having that reason to why you've priced it like you have. So then what if you were somebody who creates miniatures? So you've got a little miniature painting, you have taken weeks and weeks and weeks to create that piece, and you need to put a decent price tag on that. Well, that's where education comes in as well. And that is where communication comes in. And therefore you can by all means have smaller pieces that are pricey in context of everything else you do, but you need to explain why, because people in today's world will go, well, I can go online and buy something that's twice the size and it's so much cheaper. Why buy from you? Why pay that price? There's completely a reason why. Going to the maker, going to the small gallery, getting an original, getting something that isn't mass produced. Maybe you're supporting some good causes with some of what you do, the proceeds. You're supporting the local community with what you do as well. You're enhancing culture. There are all kinds of things, there are kinds of reasons, and people will pay when it's the right item. And you can help them work out ways of paying, even if it's by installment, that sort of thing. Again, continuing as well with context. In terms of your pricing within a marketplace context, within your own bodies of work, within or an artist that you're working with. If there are galleries watching this video or the replay, when you're supporting an artist on how that pricing is working. Sometimes galleries and artists work together on this point of pricing. You want pieces to make context next to each other within an artist's bodies of work. And it's not to say that just because something is quote unquote old means that it's cheaper. In fact, if you look at, say, the whole concept of demand in a marketplace, then actually if something has been selling over the years and an artist is no longer creating those pieces and there are only a few left from a body of work, well, that's going to push the prices up, because with supply and demand, that means there is less supply, there are no more pieces being added to it, and there might be increasing demand. And it's actually the exact same reason that often artists' work after an artist's lifetime will increase over time if the artist's work continues to sell. Just to make that comparison, is because, well, there are definitely no more pieces being made available. And therefore, it's going to push the prices up because fewer pieces are available as the works are acquired. Insofar as what else impacts upon pricing, it could by all means be that the cost of materials, the cost to create a work of art, that could have some impact, because you do want to make sense of profitability. Although what I would bear in mind is that what I encourage you to do is to price within what makes sense in a marketplace, and I'll come back to that point shortly, and then work out your costs from there. Do the materials that you're using make sense? Is there other ways of saving on some of the costs of creating the pieces? What in the equation doesn't make sense? And when you then talk about, say, commission splits between maybe galleries and artists, well, if it's a custom commission, I would actually expect the artist to be getting a higher percentage of the commission than they normally would. Feel free to blame Be Smart About Art on this idea. It really makes sense. I'm an ex-gallerist, and this is what I used to do. You make sense of it. You go, right, the artist needs more to make that custom commission. There's a lot of back and forth with the client or the public body, whoever is commissioning the piece. Could be a corporate, who knows how many decision makers could, or key stakeholders could be in there. And so the artist is, typically speaking, going to need a bit more when it comes to bespoke commissions. And what the individual, the agent, the project manager can do to still take enough income themselves is they can also add on a project management fee to that. And so you still make sense the pricing, and you might actually still have the price of the work of art, the artist getting 70% of that, the agent getting 30%. Then there's an added project management fee, and that's where the agent gets the rest of the money that they need. And then you might itemize some different items like framing or plinth or delivery, installation, that kind of thing. And so you want to think all of these things through when it comes to pricing to make certain that everyone is getting what they should, that it's fair and reasonable, and that you're not overcharging, say, customers as well. It's one of the reasons why I really love using a certain formula for, say, recouping framing costs, which is actually whoever in the equation, if an artist and gallery are working together, whoever's paid for the frame, that they're able to recoup the framing price, and then the commission split on the work of art is divided separately, unless the frame is part of the piece. And for example, if you had a piece that was, let's say, $1,250 that was being sold, the $250 was the price of the frame. That goes back, in this instance, to the artist, or it could actually be to the gallery as well. It doesn't have to be the cost of, it can actually include an extra 20% or something along those lines. That gives them some profit, some margin, that is paying for the time that they have been spending with that. And then secondly, the other thing is that when you get to that $1,000 that's remaining, then that's the commission split between the artist and the gallery. And you're not continually increasing the prices to the consumer in order to pay for the frame. And frames really can be where artists and galleries alike make some good income when it comes to works on paper in particular. And it makes sense to get some profit out of those. You know what works. You know the supplier. You're able to go to somebody who is providing materials that are archival, that you're also able to handle the works of art, and you do the schlepping, you do the thinking piece, and it does take years to understand about framing. So I really do encourage that you get some profit when you are overseeing framing, whether that's directly with a client or if it's working with a professional partner, whoever on that equation, whatever side is dealing with that particular service. And sometimes galleries sort out the frames as well. I know galleries who have arranged to have frames on works of art that actually help to enhance the presentation of the piece, and then actually is able to sell for all the more. So they only sell the pieces framed because that's really what completes the piece. I could go on and on about framing. It really is significant. So when it comes to profit margins, I want to just give you some really quick insight about, this is more about the thinking behind how you're pricing, because the majority of artists who I speak with, when they first start working with galleries, they think, okay, I need to double my prices overnight. And some galleries might even think that as well. They're going, well, I'm not getting enough money now, so I need to double the prices. Now, that's not necessarily the way that works. And the reason for that is that actually, when it comes to profitability, when you first start working with a gallery, it's most likely the case that you'll continue to sell some pieces yourself, and it will take the gallery time to be selling pieces. So in the cases in which the gallery is selling works, absolutely correct that that gallery is going to be taking some hopefully rightly earned commission, and that you would be getting less commission than you would have done previously. However, if the gallery is only selling, say, 30% of your total sales because you still have a lot of private clients, the artist is doing a number of open studio events, open house events, maybe taking pieces to fairs or other events, putting pieces into art prizes, well, actually, the artist is still getting 100% of the price for those other 70% of transactions. And you find a happy balance somewhere in between, which is one of the reasons why you sometimes see prices step up a little bit when a gallery starts to represent an artist. That's suddenly okay for those sales in which the gallery is selling the piece. Well, for the gallery to make enough money, for the artist to make money, furthermore, the gallery's working with the artist is endorsing the artist, it's giving credibility to the artist. It could actually help some of the artist's private sales if the artist is continuing to privately sell, by the by. And then there's often a thinking of artists going, oh my gosh, why are my existing clients going to the gallery? Well, they might actually be making the purchases because they're going, wow, you're now showing with that gallery. Amazing. I'm going to buy that piece that I've been thinking about. So there are a whole host of reasons that people end up purchasing works from either the artist or the gallery, even if the individuals already knew the artist. And all of this has come back to the pricing and to make sense of the profitability, the percentage of transactions that are going through the gallery and through the artist. And ideally, when you're not doubling your prices overnight, it means you can take your clients with you over time, just like the artist who I mentored many, many years ago, who I remember her telling me about how she's based in England. She started by presenting her paintings into a local pub, kind of selling those pieces for £50, let's call that $70. And today she is selling her paintings for thousands of pounds. Literally, it's amazing. She's making a full-time living. She's very talented. And she just stepped up those prices gently year after year after year after year. And she is happily making her living as an artist, doing commissions, doing exhibitions, right now doing well, focusing on her studio work during the pandemic, and beyond she'll continue to sell pieces. I'm sure she's been successfully taking on some commissions even during this time. So it's not to say that you have to double your prices overnight, and you want to think about this ideally in the long term, what's sustainable and what enables you to continue just stepping up those prices over time. Now, what I want to do is to think about what those 3 steps are to pricing art, whether or not you're just starting out or you're needing to develop pricing for new body of work, or remember, even a new service. The first step is researching. So that is a single word, researching. So you are researching what are other people doing who are at similar stages of career, offering comparable services or products. How are they pricing? It's not to say that everyone else gets it right. They don't. Do your research and see what you're generally speaking finding. After you're researching, you're testing. And so the testing stage is when you put the prices on and you see what the responses are. If those works of art or the services are selling like hotcakes, you might be underpricing. If people are almost nibbling but they're not buying, well, you could be overpriced, or you could be presenting to the wrong people. When you're testing, you're taking really quick feedback and you're able to make some adjustments. I've spoken before about my husband Chris when he was selling a body of work a number of years ago. That was in British pounds. He had the price tag of £850 on the photographs. People were almost biting, not quite. When he reduced the prices down to £750, bingo, he suddenly started selling the pieces. I think it just psychologically sounded better. And do think about, when we talk about psychology, say the different thresholds that you're overcoming too. So if you're wanting to price a piece at £1,000, why not price it at £950? Or instead of $1,000, $950 or $975? There's something deep unconscious going on there. So remember that kind of psychological consideration to pricing. And then after researching and testing, the third step is then establishing. So that's you establishing your prices. That is your price in the marketplace. And then you can start to step up from there over time. And then you're following all of the points that we spoke about previously. So if you're an artist who is just starting out, you're not looking at the prices of pieces by represented artists and galleries. You're looking at other artists who are maybe just ahead of where you are at the moment because they have just started selling. Maybe they're in artist studios and you're looking at how they're pricing. And thankfully, one good piece of news with this online world, online exhibiting, online selling, is we'll increasingly be able to research art fairs, artist studios, artist websites, gallery websites, etc., 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 to find prices. You won't necessarily need to go face to face. And with me coming from small town America, where I wouldn't have had that much local information available, I have to say this is fantastic news because there are creatives based all over the planet. And providing you can get access to the internet, you can go and do some brilliant research. Saatchi Online, Art Finder, the other art fair, go have a look at artist studios, so on and so forth. All very, very useful. And for the galleries, what are some other galleries your size? You can also look at galleries listings from art fairs and follow through to the gallery websites as an example. Right, some FAQs are, I want to keep this one concise for the purposes of today. I'm going to take you through 2 key points. One is what about taxation? In the UK and the EU, we have VAT, and in the USA and many other places, you've got sales tax, which could be state tax, it could be city tax, so on and so forth. When it comes to taxation, my key takeaway for you today is when you start working with a professional partner to sit down and go through, this could be online, go through, okay, when a work of art sells or when something sells, even if a gallery is, say, or an interior designer or someone is arranging a portrait commission or something like that, what is the artist going to get? I find many artists having surprises and thinking that galleries or agents, art consultants, etc., are pulling a fast one on them. They're not. Actually, what's normally happening is they're acting as a tax collector. They're just passing that on to the government. And therefore, the commission that you might have been expecting could be less based on how they're calculating tax. And when it comes to works of art, sometimes tax is calculated differently. And I'm keeping that really, really broad because depending on where you're based or depending on where your agent or partner is based, different scenarios could apply. So that's my tip for you, is to walk through what actual commission would you be getting, and also what do you need to do? You need to presumably provide some bank details or provide a way to make payment. It could be a Stripe account. They're all different kinds of brilliant online ways to make and receive payments these days. So how exactly is that going to work? And what kind of paperwork does your professional partner expect from you? The other point is about commission percentages. Now, there is no black and white, wrong or right on this particular point. Commissions percentages range anywhere from an artist getting 80% to an artist getting 40%. I don't tend to hear anything worse than that. If an artist is getting less than 50%, then you really need to think about why on earth is the artist getting less than 50%. I never loved that. There are occasional situations in which a gallery is kind of breaking an artist into a market and it's a big gallery. The gallery has got tons of clients. They're going to need to invest a lot into the artist. And so maybe it makes sense because they're covering some additional costs. The artist is going to profit from it. It makes sense. But if that's ever the case, I really recommend the artist and the gallery say, okay, once we hit X percentage of sales or we hit this date, whichever comes close, we need to review the pricing breakdown. When it comes to what I typically see, it's for bricks and mortar galleries. The gallery is typically going to be taking 40 or 50%, 50% for big city centers, 40% for more regional gallery locations. And then for online galleries, I've typically in previous days been seeing galleries taking 30% and then maybe increasing their percentage when they start to do art fairs and online exhibitions. But I really think that for the world that we're moving into, we're probably going to see a great need for online galleries and online-based gallery businesses to be taking higher percentages because they're actually going to be doing viewings, they'll be setting up online exhibitions, and the costs are increasing even to have an online business. When you're working in certain media, such as bronze sculptures, there is a need for the maker or whomever is paying for the bronze in that case to be taking a higher percentage because it's a high cost medium. There can be other media that are exactly the same. Sometimes photography can be the exact same. You want to work out what's fair so that everybody is getting what they need. And just bear in mind, making it in this field is the long game. You can expect less profitability in the earlier days and you build up over time. I'm not trying to set your expectations to be low, but it's to say that those who I see surviving are those who consistently build up bodies of work, relationships, a following, clients, and that over time you start to see that supply and demand coming into effect, and that's going to be pushing up your prices. You want to diversify your income streams as well. And we're coming back all the way to the beginning of the session to think about the psychology behind getting the right pricing for the right offering. And when you're going through a period like what we're living through right now, which we can expect to be a different world for a good few years. I was just reading in, I think it was the Financial Times, about it looking like we may not return to kind of a decent economy until 2023. That wouldn't be surprising. Does the economy continue? It absolutely does. Are there opportunities? Of course there are. Keep your mind open, pivot, introduce different income streams, have different ways of introducing customers. Going back to that early example I gave you, have prints that you're selling to people who might in a few years, when they're more comfortable financially, be buying originals or commissioning you. There are all different kinds of things that you can do. That is bringing us to an end of this absolute whirlwind journey of pricing art profitably. Put your takeaways into comments. I would love to know one thing that you're going to do. That's always interesting to me. Or if you have already seen some results from a previous workshop or talk, or even a mentoring session that we've done, and it's based on pricing, feel free to comment in the comments. I love seeing that, and that's really what drives us to do the work that we do at Be Smart About Art. I'm going to sign off now. Here's to taking action. That's what it takes, and to having an open mind and listening to your customers' needs as well. That's often when you develop new income streams, is when you're hearing things time and time again, and you go, oh, wait, enough people are asking me about that. Perhaps that's something that I can consider introducing. It's not to say that you have to do all the delivery. Maybe you have some key partners like framers or others who help you be able to deliver more added value content and added value goods and services for your client base. Thank you as ever. Signing out from Lewis and East Sussex, I've been Susan J. Mumford. Ciao for now.